Hey, Mike, we got Ellis on the line here. What do you want to ask him?
Looking back now, knowing what you know today, what advice would you give yourself? And then how would you implement that?
If I could say, hey, if you invest 10K today, I'm going to give you a 10X return tomorrow, guaranteed. You would do that. Even if you didn't have 10K, you would figure out how to go get 10K because I'm going to give you 100K tomorrow. Early on in this business, I didn't understand that I am my greatest asset. So investing money into myself, education, mentorship, business development, sales, marketing, all of those things have come back to me in tenfold. So spend money on that because it's going to come back to you.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. Super excited for today's show. It's one of our Ask the Expert episodes. We got two amazing people on the line with us. We got a man with a ton of experience in real estate and other businesses, Ellis Hammond, and a motivated, aspiring investor, Mike Keller. So Ellis has spent the last 6 years building Christian communities on college campuses across San Diego. He's been an evangelist for his cause, raising nearly $200,000 and launching faithful Christians into the world of business and ministry. He's also a successful real estate investor who began investing in real estate 3 years ago with the goal of creating more passive income to support his family. He quickly found himself investing in bigger deals and syndicating large multifamily apartment complexes. He's now the founder of ellishammond.com and manages a private network of investors seeking passive investment opportunities in multifamily syndications across the United States. And that said, Ellis, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here. Mike, what's going on? Excited to jump in.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
This is going to be fun. Always is one of the highlights of my week. Every time I can sit down with people and talk about apartments and sit down with really, really good people too. And that's one thing else I've noticed about you from the beginning. I've listened to your podcast for a while. You are just one of those genuinely good people, and I'm excited for today's episode. So
yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So that said, why don't you give us a little bit of background and history, who you are and kind of what led you into this apartment investing?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to kind of record some of these thoughts today because I do get a lot of these calls like, hey, how did you do this? Because I was a former pastor and missionary, didn't have a real estate background. I don't come from a high net worth family. We really started from scratch, no education. We did have, about 100K, so that was helpful. So we weren't dead broke, but didn't have any income really. I was, we had money put away, but we were, on a missionary's budget.
Yeah.
And so we took that 100K that we had. It was actually from another family investor who was we entrusted us. I'm not sure why, to help them make a better return, but we got serious about how to use that. And we bought a duplex in San Diego, California. And that was our start. Had no idea that we could even buy a duplex, went to a seminar and, of how to build wealth through real estate. And it hit me at the right time, man. And it just was the light went on of like, maybe I could do something more than just ask people for money in order to build wealth. Like maybe I could be a better steward of capital and capital creation. And so we just got hungry to figure it out. And our first start was a duplex and just loved it, man. Loved the process, loved the people who put me around. And, but and we made a ton of money buying that duplex here in San Diego. We actually just sold it this year and I did really well. But the biggest thing that the duplex taught me was one, that capital flows to money flows to value. So we created value in this duplex and made a lot of money in it. But probably the most important thing was to realize that second, I could buy real estate, but third, buying duplexes was never going to help us accomplish the goals that we had in mind for the impact that we wanted to create. And so our next deal was, what we are going to talk about today, syndication, buying apartment complexes. And that was the start of kind of where we are today with our company Hammond Equities and our asset management group Symphony. So that's a little bit about us.
So just curious. I mean, we talked just before the show, but I've lived 7 years in San Diego. Where in San Diego and what year did you buy the duplex?
We bought it close to San Diego State because that's where we were working and had our ministry. And we bought that in 2017. It's all a blur, man. It's happening so fast, but it was around then, beginning of that year. And it's funny, man. People are like, oh, things are, are so expensive back in 2017. Well, prices have doubled in 3 years here in San Diego, literally doubled. So we had a great run and we just got out of it just because who knows how much longer this market, it's a very cyclical market and has
Yeah.
been historically. So
Sad to hear you say that, because my second investment property was a condo in San Diego. We bought it in 2009 and we sold it in 16. So,
yeah,
you know,
man,
you
you just
telling
missed
me,
you missed a huge run, probably a bigger run from
Mhm.
2015 to 2020 than 2009, 2015. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's hard to believe, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, we were happy with when we sold it, and there were other reasons why we sold it. End of the day, I think I turned 15,000 into 150,000.
Yeah, I mean, you
Um,
can't. Yes, you can't hate on yourself for doing that for
yeah.
sure. You look back and but that's a great, man. Good for you.
Yeah. And that was $100,000 I had in my back pocket to start, to really kickstart my investing career.
Yeah,
So it worked for us. Had we held on a little longer, maybe I would have made more, but hindsight's 2020.
that's it.
So cool. So yeah, understand duplex was your first foray into real estate investing. How'd you get into the larger syndication stuff? What did that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of this, and I again, no mentors, no education, no one to really hold my hand in this. So I just started reaching out to people I
Mhm.
respected, and I would literally, this is for anyone who's listening, I would listen to interviews like this, hundreds of them, right? Like I just never stopped listening to podcasts, and the people that really resonated with me, they would always leave their contact information at the end of the show, and I would call them or I'd email them, and I just started building a network that
Yeah.
way. And that's really how I found my first partner. And what I could leverage. And I do think this is important. A lot of people call me, and they're asking questions. They want to get to in this, but they don't really quite know what they're going to leverage or what
Mhm.
what they actually bring to the table. For me, I was a money raiser. I had been
Mhm.
raising funds for our nonprofit for several years, and I already had a track record and a network of people who really trusted me. And so, that's what we did. I mean, we raised money to get into the game. We found an experienced operator and had a network of investors and leveraged that to essentially get into the deal.
Yeah.
And that was our start. And, it wasn't a big portion, but it was enough to start telling a story. And I think that's so key for anyone trying to get in is
Mhm.
like, do it, be active, do transactions, make offers, because
Mhm.
it doesn't matter how big the deal is. Once you have something, you can start telling a story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the story and having something to talk about will change the game for you.
Absolutely. Now, two key points that I'll reiterate. Number one, if somebody resonates with you on a podcast, pick up the phone and call. Especially if they're giving you a phone number, do it. If they give you an email address, email them. I'll tell you one of the pivotal moments in my journey. I was just a podcast listener for 2 years. Hadn't really done anything, so to speak. I remember I'm running on a bridge across the Potomac River, listening to a podcast, and there was a guy whose story just completely resonated with me. I work at the Pentagon, and he said, "Hey, my last 3 years in military service, I was working at the Pentagon." I'm like, "Wow, that's so amazing," and things just lined up. And I remember stopping with sweaty fingers trying to tap out an email on my cell phone, but it
Yeah.
started a relationship that's existed since. And that's one key point. And the other thing you said, I think, is replayed over and over and over again. You need to get your foot in the door. You need to be able to have a little bit of a track record, a little bit of experience, get that
Yeah.
momentum started, and everything else is easier after you have that momentum. So what's a typical property look like? What are you guys looking for as far as the deals that you invest in?
Yeah, no, it's a great. So we have a couple things going on right now. We actually just made we got a couple offers out right now. Our typical deal size from the deals that we're at managing, the assets that we're managing are going to fall in between the $5 and $15 million range at this
Mhm.
point. Really like Arizona markets, Tucson, Phoenix, Albuquerque's in New Mexico, and Kansas City is another market that we focus on as well. And so that's our typical range and deal size in terms of the assets that we're managing. We also have a couple mobile home parks within the 100 unit range too that we've been able to transact on over the last 12 months. And then we have like I said, Hammond Equities is really kind of the capital side of our business where we're raising money from. And we also have a fund, and that fund is actually placing capital with a larger group, and our target size there is much bigger, and around the 250 all the way up to the 400 unit mix.
Mhm.
And those are some key markets like Dallas, Houston, Orlando, Raleigh. And the reason for that is we just have an experienced team that we can leverage their track record, their access to the market, and be able to get into deals that honestly where we are in our career would never be able to compete
Right.
at that level. And so really like kind of having the blend of, yeah, we're doing our own thing and managing our own assets at a kind of a smaller level, maybe some higher returns because we're able to take a little bit more risk there. But then the fund gives my network of investors access to opportunities that we're not going to be able to see for several years. That the returns might be slightly lower, but you're investing in very stabilized assets with a team that has a $100 billion type track record.
Yeah, lower returns maybe, but I think typically stuff like that comes with a little less risk.
Yeah.
You're picking cities that are larger, have maybe a better demographic, maybe a more diverse job market,
Right.
with population demand that's always there. So
Right. But that's why I like, man, for us at Symphony with our markets of Tucson, for example, Kansas City, Albuquerque, those are markets that are experiencing great growth because of what's happening around them. And they're still great. I mean, we're, awesome return for investors, awesome returns for us. There's just plenty of meat on the bone for everyone to make money in those type of deals. So we're having a lot of fun just trying to kind of build out that operation. Mobile home parks are really good cash flowing assets, so that's been fun. But we're not going to see big appreciation plays on those. Those are mostly for a cash flow type play. But still, the apartment side of things, there's some cool things happening. We're excited about in markets like those tertiary type markets: Tucson, Kansas City, Albuquerque. Those would be definitely considered tertiary type markets, but still really great plays for folks who really are looking for getting a pop in their investment. Still.
Yeah. Now, coincidentally, or maybe it's not a coincidence, but you're in San Diego. A lot of the markets that you mentioned are not California, and there's probably lots of reasons for that, but they're close to California.
Yeah.
How did the proximity to where you live play a factor in what markets you selected?
Yeah, honestly, that's why. I mean, that's a great point, man. I mean, I just think like what we've continued to learn is that if you're going to play, I don't want to say big boys because I don't know if we're 150 units. There's bigger fish even above us, but it's still a very sophisticated level, right? Like you're no longer the duplex, quadplex. You're not buying the 20 units. You're really starting to get into larger multifamily. So it's a sophisticated group, sophisticated type brokers. You have to be competitive in your offer. And most of these folks want to know because there's so many offers on every single deal, right? That's coming to market. That one of the questions they ask you is, hey, have all the principals toward the deal. Are you familiar with the asset? Because the buyer just wants to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And so, it's just, if we're looking at, we've even kind of narrowed down our markets for that very reason, because we just need the confidence. Like we want to have our own confidence and then be able to portray that confidence to the seller that, we know the market, we have our team ready. And so, yeah, proximity has been everything because matter of focus, matter of being able to move fast and trying to break into a market that we don't live in. We need to get there regularly. So, we can drive to Tucson in 6 hours, can get on a flight to Kansas City relatively quickly. Same thing with Albuquerque.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely key. When you put an offer in, it's not just the number on a paper. There's a confidence level as well. I think a lot of brokers recommend to sellers, and a lot of sellers will take the higher priority deal, even if the numbers are a little less. It's just like you were talking about the investment opportunities that your fund's looking at. It's a little bit lower of a return, but it's a more stabilized asset, maybe in a better area. So, a lot of times there are trade-offs like that. So
yeah.
It does.
You got to go, man. This was so confirming me. Like, sure there are folks listening who are trying to break in. You go to the first step is just go and meet people. Like we just did that in Tucson, and we just got back from a trip last week. And it always confirms when we go, like, I always thought we should do this more often. Like we could come every week. Like I'm thinking I was left that place. I'm like, can we move here? Like, honestly, would my wife be open for us just to literally move everything to Tucson? Because it's a relationship game, man. It so much is.
Yeah. And that's something that's really helped us too. I first started looking for apartment buildings, about 2.5, 3 years ago. And it wasn't until my first trip to my target market that I started getting traction.
Yeah.
I was talking to brokers all the time, and, sometimes they'd respond to my emails, sometimes they wouldn't, such is the life of an aspiring investor. But it was that first trip, and it was an 8-hour drive from here to Columbia, South Carolina. I'm in DC, but 8-hour drive to Columbia. And that's when I toured the first property we got under contract. And had I not driven down there, I never would have been showed that property, because we were walking one property with a broker. We put an offer in it, didn't get it. But as we were walking the property, the broker looked at me and said, "We just had a seller call us about property X."
Yeah, that's crazy.
We don't have a brochure. We haven't even crunched the numbers yet. I'm like, we just barely got their financials. We know nothing about it. Do you want to walk the property? I'm like, yeah.
That's funny you say that, man. That literally happened to us too. We had a meeting with a broker team. We're in their office. We're the first team they're seeing in the new year, right? And they say, hey, we have a deal. We don't have the contract yet. We're waiting for the signature for the seller to sign the docs so that we can get the listing. And we were and literally, I think they got the call while we were in the office later that day. We were the first people who looked at that deal. It wasn't actually what we were looking for, but it was cool to think like, we're the first team. Like we're the first people seeing this asset. If we wanted to crack at it, we would have been in a really good position to be able to do so.
Yeah. And building those relationships and being out there with the brokers, that's the only way you get first crack at things. Had I stayed at home that week and done stuff from my basement like I do right now.
Yeah. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of a broker, how they support their family by doing transactions. And, when they come to a seller, with a list of, hey, here are my buyers, here are the people that are ready to move. Like, the most important thing to them is they don't want you to get into this and then get out of it. Like, they want the confidence that you're going to get them paid, in the next 60 days. And they don't want to push that off for, another 120, another 180 days if you fall out of contract. And so that's super, super important that, and so the best way to do that is either one, close deals, right? If you're not going to build relationships, just close deals, or build a relationship that they trust you enough. If you're not closing a lot of deals, that they have the confidence. So either close deals or show up more often is the only way I figured it out.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to shift gears slightly. And I want to ask you a question that I think is probably the most important thing that I asked during the podcast. What is your big burning why? What's your motivation for continuing to do this?
Well, I mean, first of all, man, we want to build wealth. We're in this because we started in real estate to figure out ways to create capital. So, we're in this to make a lot of money. I mean, I say that really bluntly because for so long I feared money. I didn't want money. I kept it away from me. And when I realized that capital equals influence, and that as a missionary who didn't have any money, I was really only stewarding half of my gifts. I got really serious about building wealth and really leveraging that wealth to impact people's lives and support our nonprofit and our missionary group. So, dude, I'm in it to make a lot of money, like really simply. And I'm really unashamed about that. That's why we're doing this. I'm really motivated by building wealth through apartments and helping other people do that, because I saw a great missionary group really struggle because they didn't have enough capital. And I've seen, my mom and my family have seen them struggle because they don't have enough money. Right. So I'm really motivated by trying to build a lot of money through apartment investing. So that's one. And two, but I see apartment communities as an incredible vehicle to help people come to know Christ. And I also say that really unashamedly. I'm a missionary, former pastor. And so my spirituality, my faith, my belief in Christ is serious. And so we see the apartment community as a great way to have an impact. And so our fund is actually a faith-driven fund. And we are using a ministry partner inside of our communities to share the love of Christ and tell people about Jesus inside of our communities. And so both of those are really why I love this asset class, because it allows us to do both of those very intentionally.
Yeah. There are a couple of things on there that I'll comment on. I'm from a missionary family as well. My daughter did just finished a mission for our church a year ago, and I did one in Chile when I was, 19, 20 years old. My family had to reach out to other people for help. Yep. My parents couldn't fund my mission because they didn't have money. And one of my neighbors, who is also the same faith, funded my mission. He paid for my mission, and I realized when that happened myself that, what position did I want to be in? Did I want to be in the position where I have to reach out to other people to fund my children's missions? Or do I want to be in the position where, if one of my neighbors needs help, I can give help, and I think, I think a lot of people, I think you bring up some key points on that one. A lot of religious people, I mean, they think the money is the root of all evil, which is not true. It's absolutely something, it's a tool. It's something that you can use to help other people. And so yeah, what you said really resonated with me from that standpoint, because money is a tool, and the more you have, the more good you can do, the more people you can help, the more mouths you can feed, all the way down the line. So anyway, I very much appreciate what you said, and very much appreciate, your efforts in making the world a better place.
I think most people just aren't honest with themselves, man. Like, who doesn't want to be rich? Like, quit fooling yourself. Like, why do you go to work every day? You know what I'm saying? Like, you probably, let's just, more people just need to be honest. Like, you want to be wealthy. Like, it's okay if you don't talk about it, if you don't set goals, if you're never going to get it. And that was me. The reason we never had money is because we never talked about it. We never went after it. We didn't know how to go get it. And so of course we were poor, right? Like, just is what it is. And so now I want to talk about it. I'm open about it. I know we're really clear about it, and we're doing it. Like, it's starting to come to us. And so, just, I don't know. It's just funny sometimes, man. And, so no, I'm glad we're in a like-minded group here. So
I think there's a little taboo in society as well. I mean, for the longest time, I mean, when I was younger, I was taught that you don't ask people how much they make. It's a sensitive issue. You don't ask about money. You don't. So it's, I don't know if it's what part of our culture, kind of pushes that, but it seems to be something that a lot of people have to break through. A lot of people have to start focusing on it.
Man, that's why your network, your people you're around is so important, man. Like, it's why we start a mastermind, have a mastermind. Is just, mindset's everything. That's so impacted by the people you're around and who you're with. And, that was the biggest barrier for me getting into this. It was just changing my mindset on the way that I viewed money and went after it and talked about it. And so it's crazy.
Okay, well, that said, let's shift gears. One more question for you, then we'll bring Mike on. So what's next for you?
Yeah, we're raising. I'm really excited about this fund. I would say that's probably the big thing right now. In terms of our company, is that we're raising this. It's called the Mission Multifamily Fund, which kind of aligns with our, the book we're going to talk about later, and our story. And so I'm really liking this fund model, man. That we have an ability for people to come in, kind of it. We don't necessarily have to have a deal right away for them to invest, but yet we're leveraging the experience of others. So I really am liking this fund model. We'll close this in the next few weeks, and then if it goes well, I think we'll do fund 2. I just really enjoying this process and raising money for that. So excited about that. And then big next thing, I'm having a baby girl in May. And so Amazing. My life's going to completely change. And so both of those things, man, are really exciting.
Yeah. Yep. That little girl is going to be your little princess, pride and joy. And I mean, been there, done that. So actually my firstborn daughter, who, incidentally was joined at the hip when she was young. She edits this podcast. So so that's great. But
she's definitely gonna know about entrepreneurship, how to invest.
She changed my world, and she knows that. But she was a daddy's girl for a while, and then went back to she was one of those that kind of went back and forth. It was daddy's girl for 2 years, then mommy's girl for 4 years, and anyway. That said, all right, so let's shift gears right now. We'll bring Mike on the line. So Mike was born and raised in Sacramento, California, until enlisting in the Army in 2004, and went straight into the Special Force community, where he spent over 16 years of service, which has included a myriad of combat deployments in various countries, leading elite teams in very sensitive environments worldwide. In 2008, he began to study real estate investment strategies, and within 1 year acquired over $800,000 in properties. His passion for running a successful company post-retirement from the military has changed his strategy to one of scaling his business model into apartment syndication. Through personal investments and professional mentorship and education, he plans to rapidly accelerate his business model and maximize his investors' returns. That said, Mike, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, history, and lead us up to the point to where you decided apartments was going to be your thing.
Yeah. Well, like you said, 2004, signed up for the Army. It was around that time, obviously, after 9/11, seeing what was going on, just really want to make a difference and have an impact and do something special. So, they had a program where you kind of come directly into the special operations community and rolled the dice and went for it. And it worked out. Obviously, it doesn't work out for everybody. It's hard to do it, but
It's
it
a
worked out.
very selective community. So, I mean, yeah, very
Yeah.
selective.
So it's almost 17 years later today, I'm still at it. And it's been a successful run. But a couple of years ago, as you kind of look, you have to, when you're running hard, you eventually got to slow down and look at the future. Post-military eventually is going to happen. So I started studying like passive income and like, man, what does that mean? And I looked at car washes and storage units and really just started studying real estate. And a couple of years ago, I got brought in with some friends to an Indianapolis network, and through that and through capital raising on my own through my friends and family, within 1 year I was able to acquire like 9 doors. So I was pretty proud of for doing a lot of that on my own. So as that was going on, I was like, well, this is fun, this is going well, I need to scale. Started again studying real estate into apartments, and then looked at syndication, started just consuming multifamily material, whether that was podcasts, books, YouTube videos, whatever I could get. I just started studying it. So I just engrossed myself in that. And then actually I was overseas and ran into a good friend of mine, Brock Murgis, who's now my business partner. I'm like, yeah, Brock, this is what I'm doing, man. I'm pretty pumped about it. We're going to move into the apartment syndication. And he's like, really? That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm doing. And so we just became best friends. And
Nice.
so we've known each other for years. So it was an easy partnership. And so we formed Aquila Multifamily. And then from there, we heavily invested in ourselves through mentorship, through the Michael Blanc program, and Jeremy Lemire, our coach.
Yep.
And we've just been, again, consuming material, meeting people, networking, building a good, solid foundation so that we can move forward in this. And so we've had a good run at it so far, and we're excited. We've already submitted some LOIs, got one in the burner right now.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, just waiting for that first one. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, and I've been following you guys. I mean, you know this, but nobody listening does. But we talked several times, and I think you guys are doing all of the right things. So it's just a matter of time. Keep on doing those right things, and it's just a matter of time till you're going to connect on something.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what is your big burning why? I mean, you kind of wove some of that through your story, but if you can distill that down to one thing.
The big thing's time. I want to own my time, and Brock's on the same line. So, and obviously that comes with wealth. So, like Ellis is saying, yeah, we want to build wealth, but the root of that is time. So the military has kind of owned our time, and that's not a bad thing. We're very thankful for what we've done, and we've enjoyed our service. But at the end of it, we'd eventually like to own our own time and so we can spend it with our kids and have that control back. So definitely generate that wealth to build time. And then on the backside of that, once we do build that platform with a business, we want to provide like educational opportunities to soft individuals that are really high performers. I didn't really learn about money and real estate and wealth building until really a couple of years ago. You do the typical Roth IRA savings, put as much equity into your house to pay that down. And so the mindset really changed a couple of years ago. And I wish I would have had that 10 years ago. So we want to build a platform where we can educate people and bring people into our umbrella, and then also provide a mentorship opportunity to soft guys that are transitioning, because they're super high performers, fast learners, dedicated, integrity more than most. And we want to provide that free of charge. So obviously we're invested heavily in ourselves. We want to be able to provide that for people coming through, learn from us, under our wing, right seat, ride some deals, and then launch them off into their own.
Right. Perfect. Now, incidentally, for those listening, military jargon, SOF, Special Operations Forces, and that's the community he's in. But I understood it, but I'm not sure if everybody listening would understand it. But well, hey, cool. I appreciate all of that, and as Ellis said, I appreciate your service as well. From one service member to another. Thanks. And that said, hey, Mike, we got Ellis on the line here. What do you want to ask him?
Yeah, Ellis, I think obviously capital raising, right? That's what I want to kind of question you about. And as like myself and Brock, new syndicators coming in, investments, we obviously need to raise capital. So how would you approach investors without a deal and give them a good look into your business model to show them why you are valuable for an investment?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. you do have some things you can show in the terms of here's what I've done, here's how we've executed, and here's why we're changing our strategy, and here's what that's going to really look like. And you're really looking for interested people who want to be a part of that. In order to really go to the next level, you need a larger funding source. And so I think you have a great track record to be able to say, hey, here's what we've done, here's what we've learned in the process, and here's the opportunity that we see ahead of us, and we're going to make a pivot, essentially is what you're explaining. And I would be trying to just sit down, man, with as many people as possible and walk them through kind of that business model. And at the end of that, I would say we need X amount of capital, or hey, we're looking to bring in, this is what we're going to need to essentially close this deal. If I bring this type of project to the table in the next 60 days, do you or anyone have interest in investing alongside of us? That would be how I would go do that. So I think putting your track record together, kind of explaining the opportunity you see ahead, and really trying to get those commitments of saying, yeah, if you brought me this and these were the returns, this was the profile, I would be interested. Getting that yes or no would be really key.
Yeah. I love that type of question because it's very non-committal. I mean, you're not like, hey, would you give me money right now? It's like, if, would you? And a second key to that, Ellis, is I think what you said was perfect. Do you or anybody I mean, that's also a key right there. Ask for referrals. But great question and great answer. Thanks, guys.
And another thing that I haven't really dug into a whole lot, but I keep hearing about it, right? So do you do any of the self-directed IRAs, retirement plans? I've heard there's a lot of ways people can invest with those types of funds. Do you do that? And if you do, could you kind of dig into that just a little bit about that process?
I think it's a great source for us as trying to source capital for sure. Interesting enough, I just did a webinar with a company last week, an IRA company, and they brought in like 100 people in this webinar. And I did a webinar around passive investing, a checklist, kind of due diligence as a passive investor, and I have a checklist for that we use for our own business, and I give that out to folks as well. And so that was kind of my pitch. Hey, go download my checklist, and then we can set up a call to talk through it or whatever. And I got a ton of good feedback that way, because you got these folks who are using their self-directed IRA. But the problem with the self-directed IRA, you have these companies, the intermediary, right, who you have to use in order to use your self-directed funds. A lot of people don't transact or actually go through the process of going through the self-directed IRA thing because they actually don't know where to put the money. Like, now that I have the self-directed IRA, what do I do with it? And so we are actually a great service for these companies, because they need places for their clients to put their money once they set up the self-directed IRA. And so my strategy has been reaching out to these companies and saying, hey, I'd like to provide a service in helping your clients with how to vet good opportunities, right? And then I can also introduce them to our company as well. And that has actually been well received. And so I personally don't have a self-directed IRA, not yet, but I think it's a good thing, personally, as a good investment. But more so on the capital side of things, absolutely, I think it's a good source for funds. I have found in the handful of conversations since that webinar that a lot of folks with the self-directed IRA are looking for more yield opportunities. And so a lot of folks are invested in notes. So I think it's a great source. I'm still unclear if it's for our fund, for example, if it's the right opportunity for them. I think it just depends, right? But I have found most people with a self-directed IRA are looking for some type of yield, and a lot of them are invested in notes, kind of fix and flip opportunities.
Okay.
So yeah, it's something to keep in mind. Yeah. But everyone's different. Maybe I haven't had enough conversations yet to really understand that profile of that type of investor, but do think it's a great place to raise money. And there's, the beautiful thing, again, the whole network hacking is how you grow your business. Go find people who already have your clients and find ways to get in front of them. So, I did a webinar. I did very little marketing for this, and there were over 100 people in that webinar. I was just showed up. I was in a cafe in Tucson, right, shopping real estate, and I just paused for an hour, and I got to speak to 100 investors. And
Awesome.
I have 15 new emails in my inbox, or 15 new clients in my inbox to follow up with. So I think it's a great place, man, for sure.
Yeah, we've actually gotten quite a bit of money from different retirement type funds. And one thing that we've been able to leverage is I can't put my own self-directed retirement funds into a deal that I'm a principal sponsor on. So that's one of those little IRS rules. So there are a lot of other sponsors that we've networked with that have invested with us using their IRA funds because they can't invest in their own deals. I think a lot of people like you and me, we're putting our funds into our own deals, and maybe there's not enough left over to invest with, our friend to the left or right. But retirement funds, one things that force us to do something like that. And the other thing is, you're at 17 years in the Army, and you probably got a lot of colleagues that are somewhere, 17 to 20 years. And there's this thrift savings plan that everybody has. Okay. So they're not able to touch it until they separate or retire from the service. But you could start reaching out to that demographic right now and educating them on options, because once they get out, there's always the question, do I leave my money there? Do I roll it over into an IRA? What do I do with this TSP stuff? You can capitalize on that. So,
honestly, man, that's a webinar for you, dude. I would do that webinar every month. And I would just say, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing after the military with whatever that was called, TSP. I love that. And here's what I'm doing, and here's how we're going to multiply that. Like, like what to do with your TSP after the military, and people are going to, and just, here's my plan. And hey guys, if you're interested in doing something similar, let's set up a call to see if you qualify.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Do that with us.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Kind of tying that into funds, you talked a lot about your fund, and I was always interested, should I start a fund, or what point should I look at starting a fund, or do we stick to the typical per capital raise per deal? See if you could talk about that a little bit. At what point did you decide, like, I want to build a fund? I think it was probably the value of the assets you're wanting to purchase, but.
Yeah, the fund we had a place to place the fund right away, which is helpful. And the fund is definitely got some more upfront cost to it. So there's that. I would say that the bigger question for the fund, man, is like, could you go raise $2 million right now in a fund that had no specific target? I think that's the bigger question. I like the fund, but the bigger question is, can you actually raise the money? And so it's definitely easier starting out to have something, right, that you can show people, hey, this is what you're putting your money into, versus a fund, because you are raising a fund in a syndication, but the fund essentially is going to one asset, right? What you're asking is, should I go raise a blind fund? That way we have money on the sideline to be able to go purchase deals. Yes, that's a good idea. It definitely would make you more competitive in making offers when you can show that your equity source is in a bank account. There's no doubt. The question is, can you do it? Could you go raise $2 million? And if so, yeah, I think it's a great idea, man. I actually really like it. And so I just think it would be, I'd ask the question back to you, how confident are you? And maybe you just go ask, hey guys, I'm thinking about starting this fund. Would you, do you want to make a commitment into it? We're going to be opening it up, and just see what kind of feedback you get. So you could go kind of probe your network before actually doing it to see how easy or how hard it would be to go do that. But, it's interesting to see some of these bigger operators who've been, the Ashcross of the world, they're actually starting funds, but they've been doing this. They've got a big track record. And so I do think the fund model is attractive, but they're at a point now where they can probably very easily raise that fund, and they didn't do that for several years. So I think it would just be like, how can you do it? If so, yeah. If not, then it's more expensive and it's a lot harder for sure.
I say, just to add to that, as a deal sponsor, we have in the past reached out to other people to help raise capital for us. Of course, they do more than just raising capital. You don't have to add that in there, because a lot of people will be like SEC, but
unless you do a fund of funds,
fund of funds, you don't have, you actually circumvent all of those SEC regulations under a 506B or C, syndication, so you can actually park that money and just park the money. But if somebody comes to us with a fund and they already have the money in the bank, for us, it's a done deal. It's no risk. And it's like, yeah, you can be a part of this deal. And here's exactly what, we're going to give you for bringing X amount of dollars to the table. So I think that's a very, very attractive from a deal sponsor standpoint. Just got to be, what fits into your business plan better, searching for deals and doing your own stuff, or are you going to be, raising money and parking in other people's deals?
I think the easier thing, again, I think that's what are you good at and what do you enjoy? Do you like the deal side? Do you like the capital side? I like the money side, man. I like the capital side. Why we launched a fund because I just like raising money.
Yep.
I like shopping deals too, but honestly, I like raising money more, I think. And so if you're on the other side of you guys are more of the operators, asset managers, then instead of trying to maybe raise a fund, what Brian just said, I think is really great. Go build a network of guys, again, who already have your clients, who have the money of investors, who have a network of investors, and just build 10 or 12 so guys that you can call on and say, hey, we got this deal. Can you help fund it? That is going to be a lot easier than trying to raise your own fund or building your own network of investors. So, that's another thing. I mean, that's a part of our, we have like a level 10 type meeting, and it's number of investors, but it's also number of capital partners that we're chatting with. And, we want to make sure we build up. Like when we went to Tucson, I invited 2 guys that hopefully will be partners with us on future deals. It gives us confidence that we can close on stuff too, and maybe even go bigger deals because now we have a couple other networks that we can pull from that are not just ours. Yeah. So that might be honestly accelerator for you, man, is thinking about trying to build a network of other capital partners, not investors, but guys who have investors.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I do enjoy the capital raising side of it, and that's the beauty of having a partner. Brock works a lot of the acquisition stuff for the deal side, and I deal with the capital. Kind of looking back now, knowing what you know today, and if you were to look back at yourself, like what advice would you give yourself, and then how would you implement that?
If I could say, hey, if you spend 10K today, if you invest 10K today, I'm going to give you a 10x return tomorrow, guaranteed. You would do that even if you didn't have 10K, you would figure out how to go get 10K because I'm going to give you 100K tomorrow. And I think early on in this business, I didn't understand that I am my greatest asset. So investing money into myself, education, mentorship, business development, sales, marketing, all of those things have come back to me in tenfold. So spend money on that because it's going to come back to you. Get really good at sales and marketing, really good at sales and marketing. This industry sucks at sales and marketing. I mean, I just won an award for Investor of the Year from this group. And the only reason, one of the biggest reasons, man, is just because I market better than everybody. Like, it's not my track record. It's not, we've closed these great, it's just because I market better than most people, man. And so sales and marketing, get really good at that. And then know what it, like, I think one of the things I'm getting better at is I know what it costs me to acquire a lead, essentially from a new investor. So I can go spend money. I can spend more money, or I will spend more money this year to acquire investors than probably most of the people in my circle, because most people don't know what it costs them to go acquire a new lead. And also, they don't know how much that lead is worth them as well. So let's say over the next year or 5 years, that one investor will make me 15 grand. They're worth 15K to me, and probably more than that if they're a repeat investor. So I'm very much willing to go spend 6 grand to acquire them. That sounds crazy. Like, you're gonna go spend $6,000 to get one investor. Well, yeah, because I can make $15,000 from one investor, right? So I'm spending a lot of money this year to go get in front of high net worth individuals, a lot of money, but I know now how much they're worth, so I can go spend that money.
Yeah, and that's absolutely key. I mean, and I do that all day, every day. And incidentally, we are spending a lot of money on marketing this year as well, just because, on the same line, if $6,000 buys me 15,000, I'll do that all day, every day. But hey, we're at the end of our rope here. So, one question for both of you: how can investors find out, or how can listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, this is great. A lot of fun. Missionmultifamily.com is grab a free copy of our book. It's my story, my journey, how we got into this, and even my mindset shift. I think it'll be a really helpful book if you've enjoyed this conversation. Missionofmultifamily.com. You can download that. And I said, I would reach out to folks at the end of this. If anybody wants to chat, shoot me an email. Ellis@ellishammond.com is my email address, or text me 619-797-6213. And I'd be happy to chat.
All right. Sounds good. And Mike, same for you. How can people learn more about you?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Brian. Definitely visit our website, please, at aquilamf.com, AQUILAMF.com. Hit me up on Instagram, Mike at aquilamf, and definitely look forward to meeting you guys and expanding our network.
Awesome. So anybody listening, all that information is going to be in the show notes. If you want to contact Ellis or Mike, definitely scroll down to those show notes. And if you've listened to the episode, there's a lot of value in contacting people who resonate with you. So hit those show notes, scroll down, tap, and contact. Once again, to both of you guys, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I think there was a lot of value in this. And quite frankly, I wish we could continue this conversation for another hour, but time's up.